All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for, I don't know, a couple of real people out there just like you and just like me. Today, special guests on the show. Professionally, they're known as the Frost Duo. And I'm talking about my good friend Christian Gratz, my other good friend Leah Beth Evans, who apparently Leah, is it true that you were named after like the Donnie Iris thing, like Leah?
That is true. And Beth
Man,
by Kiss.
man, that is, I tell you what, that is the coolest thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what a song, Christian, huh? I mean, if you're going to be named after a song, I mean, that's one that doesn't get the airplay it used to. I used to hear that song on the radio all the time, and it has such a
Great.
big hook and everything. So, how you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having us.
So yeah, I've showcased this a couple of times on the show, and you guys sent this to me. It's called Play Nice. Yeah, I love this, but my problem with this is it's too short. Okay, it's just not enough. I mean, every song on this is excellent. You guys are kind of like the smooth jazz, yacht rock, 70s, but there's all kinds of different styles that you guys do, and you perform. Tell us where you guys are based, and if somebody wanted to go and check out the Frost Duo, right, where would they go?
So you could go to www.thefrostduo.com. You could find us on all social media platforms under the Frost Duo. And we are Lakely, PA, Scranton, PA based. So that's where we're from.
Yeah. So hard scrabble, working class area. I've seen you guys, some of the footage though. It kind of looks kind of formally like I couldn't wear my. Can I wear my t-shirt? Do I have to dress up to go see you guys?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. We play everywhere.
Sometimes no shirt,
No shirt. Okay.
Like you know what? Like I'm wearing pants right now, so it's cool.
All right, so we're breaking all kinds of new info here on the show. No pants, no shirts. It's yeah, nobody wants to look at me without a shirt on, so I'm definitely going to be, but it's cool that you guys are out there. The music you guys do, Christian and Leah Beth, is it's kind of a lost art form. I know it's kind of making a comeback in certain circles. They rebranded it, that sort of that late 70s, early 80s sound, like post disco, but it's not disco, but it's got kind of a cool rhythm to it. And it's really well done. These are the guys who were just immaculate producers, we'll call them, people like David Foster, who came along and really sort of made all of this great music. And not that it got ignored, but then the 80s came along and you had big hair and you had bigger synthesizers. You had less emphasis on kind of a lower key sound. You had a lot more production. Why do you guys love that era so much? Let me ask you that.
You go ahead first. We probably have two different.
Well, I probably because when I was like 9, 10, 11 years old, and I really like absorbed what was on the radio. And to me, that was like my Beatles moment, where like, you ask the older generation, how did you discover rock and roll? Watching the Beatles and Ed Sullivan. My radio in the late 70s was the Ed Sullivan show, like all the time. And I kind of never hardly slept as a kid. So I had the radio on. So this stuff just was drilled into my head. And I just, that's and like I just, it's part of my DNA now. It's like even in the 80s and the 90s when I was doing different stuff, it's like R&B and soul and funk and jazz and stuff like that. This was always in the back swirling around. So when we wanted to do our album, it was like one of my favorite groups from that era. One of my favorite sounds was the Bee Gees, late 70s. Mm-hmm. Into like Andy Gibb records or the Bee Gees records, and all those instrument sounds are like to me, that was like my thing, so I kind of like I didn't. I heard that doing the new smooth jazz stuff, nobody was really doing that. Nobody they kind of overlooked that era, like where it was like,
yeah,
late 70s. You had the CTI record sound, which is an instrumental jazz. You had George Benson before he started singing. Chuck Mangione. They were still playing instrumental jazz on the radio, Dave. Remember? In the late
yes,
70s?
yes, sir. I was there for "Feel So Good." A lot of people forget that. I mean, but that was, I had that. I had the record. I had the. I mean, you all of that stuff was competing for your attention, and you were really cool if you went out and bought like a Spyro Gyra album or a Chuck Mangione, or pick your yeah. Herb Alpert was just every decade he'd reinvent himself, and he was just brilliant. He's still around, I think, too. But and you post a lot of stuff too. Like I've seen your stuff on Facebook, like the charts. Here are the charts back in 1981, and you just look at the chart, and it's like one gem after another, and it's you got your countryish stuff in there. You got your Ronnie Millsap, who I love that era with Ronnie Millsap, his voice, production. It's kind of country, but it's so smooth, and it has this, I don't know even know how to describe it, but they don't make that stuff anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. See, like I'm absorbing all this stuff. I love country. I love R&B, funk, jazz, blues, and it all came from that era, because on the charts back then, they played this stuff back to back. You'd have Donna Summer next to Ronnie Millsap, next to Kenny Rogers, next to Lionel Richie, next to, you know what I'm saying? This was their reggae back then, man. Next to Herb Alpert,
right.
Look at late 1979, man. Herb Alpert is next to the Commodores, next to Kenny Rogers. You'd never see that again, Dave. You know what I'm saying?
No.
So
no.
It's like, I just, I don't know if I'm having a midlife crisis over here. But I look to that year, and it's always there. It just kind of permeates everything that I do, and the way that I put this stuff together with Leah, And I figured that I really love that sound, and at the time we were doing, like, especially we did that song "To Be With You." Remember that? That's from the album, this new album.
Yes.
I was the man to sing. Remember the song "Emotion"? And I was like, I want to do a song that has got that same feel and flow. So I kind of threw that in there.
See, that's where and this is the thing. Like no, I never said I don't like her. Chris thinks I don't like the people he likes, but that's the thing. Like, we have different, we're from two different generations, which some people do or don't realize, but that's the thing. He has certain ideas, and then I have certain ideas, and we kind of put them together. Like, for me, I wanted to get into smooth jazz, and I like smooth jazz because it grabs the attention of people more so my age. I'm in my late 20s right now, and I always loved traditional jazz, like, Ella Fitzgerald, Sinatra, the typical traditional jazz artists.
Yeah.
But some people don't like that. But what smooth jazz allows you to do is open that door to taking those traditional sounds, but like kind of spicing them up with more modern innuendos, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, sometimes even when we're playing live, we'll take a modern song and we'll put these jazzy spins on them.
Britney Spears. Let me get in there with the Britney Spears, because I can't stand Britney Spears. I just want to make it clear to my audience, I do not like. But what you guys did with that song, I put that on repeat play for like a half hour. I'm going, no way. I mean, you classed up a Britney Spears song to the point where I'm thinking, this should be on the radio, like any of those kind of later in the night radio stations. This song, the thing would explode on there as like a killer remake. And a lot of people, what's funny is, if you really don't know the original, you're just going to think, oh, what a cool new song. That's what you're going to think, because you killed that, man. You just absolutely. And what's it? Baby, do this to me one more time, right?
Baby, one more time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. like that's a, you know, a classic pop song that was big in I believe that came out in 2000,
Yeah,
1990, 2000.
something like that. Yeah.
But that's, you know, from my time, and we were able to take something that someone, you know, around my age would enjoy, and
Hmm.
that someone, you know, that's a little bit older could enjoy too. So
Like,
that's the thing. I feel like with smooth jazz, what I'm trying to get at is with smooth jazz, I feel like you get the best of both worlds. Like you could please everybody with it, and everybody's happy with it because it just sounds so great,
yeah.
and you do so much with it if you really put your mind to it.
Well, it's like I always say, and I've said this before, and I cover a lot of, much harder music, melodic rock, louder guitars and stuff. But if I'm stranded on the island, Christian, if I can't get to music, I'm gonna have, a crate of stuff like this. I'm gonna be just because number one, it's the quality of the music and the musicians who played on those records, and also your senses, right? If you're listening to screaming guitars all day, and again, I'm a huge fan of screaming guitars, but at the end of the day, it's going to be like, okay, can this guy play in this style? And the singing, like I hear you, Leah, I hear like a Sade thing here and there, but your voice is you're kind of chameleon like, which I think is cool because we can't throw you into one category. We were talking before we started recording. You guys have a song that sounds just like a Fleetwood Mac song. I mean, again, for fans of that genre, nobody is making, there's no Fleetwood Mac part 2 coming. There's no band there are a few bands that you hear and you go, oh yeah, it's a little bit like this band or a little bit like that band. But really that style, that format, is really kind of again, I keep saying lost art. Of course, there are smooth jazz radio stations out there. They were a lot bigger actually in the 90s. Like smooth jazz was, I mean, you could go to any city and they'd have a terrestrial radio station blaring out smooth jazz. And I love that format. I mean, if you've got a good stereo system and you want to kick back and relax, have a couple of adult beverages or however you unwind, I mean, that's some of the greatest music, ever. And I mean, and you guys are making that kind of music, which I think is awesome.
Thanks, Dave. You know what? As you noticed with Fire Tiger, you mentioned Fire Tiger. This is huge now. All these groups are making 80s sounding albums.
Yeah.
And I'm loving this, man, because you can go on YouTube. You could find like songs that were made today, done in the style of early 80s. And it's like, wow, like this is so cool. It's like, and I was thinking, that's exactly what I was thinking with that Britney Spears thing. Because to me, like smooth jazz is elegant. It's got to have elegance to me.
And there's rock undertones in it too.
Yeah.
There's like because back in I was thinking, what would this sound like in 1978?
Yeah.
To see what would Britney Spears sound like in 1978? You got the wah wah guitar in there, you got the grand piano, and you got the Fender Rhodes with the phase shifter. All the period effects that you got to have to be in that era. And I was like, it's just elegant, to me, like that era of music is very elegant. And there's really good disco. People malign disco so much, but there's so much good stuff and elegant. Really good disco is elegant. Strings and the voices, not the Village People, man.
It's funny.
yeah.
It's funny because I remember, and I don't know if it's a famous quote, but I remember, the Eagles were this band that a lot of bands were protesting disco, if you lived through that. And they even had a song, right? I think it was the Disco Strangler or something like that. It was by the way, it's a horrible song. One of the worst songs the Eagles ever did. But you like that song?
Yes.
I don't like it. Hey, we could agree. We could agree to this. It's okay though. But I'm trying to make a point. So Glenn Frey came along years later, and he said, because the subject matter, obviously, he's just kind of dumping on, and everybody would burn their disco albums. And I think he came along and he said, based on what we have now, which was probably the 90s when he said this, he said, maybe all those Donna Summer records weren't so bad after all, you know? And it was an admission that a lot of that music, even though it's associated maybe with, you know, anti-rock and roll, and it's, you know, people out dancing and wearing crazy clothes and stuff, but hey, it was a style, right? It was a style. It got people out dancing. I don't have anything against disco. I mean, I'm going to say it's I mean, I don't own a lot of disco records, but I grew up listening to it. And in hindsight, I mean, it's R&B, right? It's mostly just really good R&B.
Yes, it is. It's R&B mixed with some Latin influence, mixed with it became, if you notice, it became rockier. They actually started. I saw this market. You know, I collect records, so you could see the over the influences. You could see how disco, once it started getting maligned, they started making it like, they started calling it. Casey and the Sunshine Band had like rock disco records.
Yeah,
you know, you would put the term rock in there, and it was like trying to kind of meld the two a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and stuff like that going on. So,
well, what was that guitar on Get Down Tonight? What the heck was that? I had never heard as a kid when that hit the radio, that high pitched noodling thing, that it just, I had never heard anything like that on a song ever. And I don't think I've heard anything even close to that since. I mean, and then, you know, and I'm a fan of Casey and the Sunshine. What's not Harry Casey, man? What's not to be a fan of? He's just a cool dude, and they had some amazing records. And you can't, in hindsight, you look back and you go, so much melody, so much going on. And melody, you know, this is the key to everything now to me, is I don't hear melodic records anymore. I hear, you know, a lot of minor key, a lot of things are kind of staying in the same area. There's a lot of computers going on, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just an old geezer, you know, on the front lawn yelling out at all the kids to get off the lawn. But I get really frustrated with today's music, and I stick to what I like. And like you say, thank goodness there are a lot of people who are recognizing and putting out their own music. And it sucks because the industry itself, they don't have any interest in going back there. They want to keep going where they're going. And this has been going on for at least 30 years now. And to me, it's just sad. But I'm glad the Frost duo is out there, if you know what I mean.
We're out there.
how they did that on Get Down Tonight was the guitar player played those licks down octave, like down at the end of the neck, and the tape machine, the guy who was running the tape machine sped them up twice as fast.
Wow.
So, you know, what you're getting is he's playing an F down here, but when what they did is they sped it up twice as fast so that it would sound like up here, you know, an octave up. That's basically just a Stratocaster playing blues licks.
That's so cool. See, you guys, and you're both pretty musical, right? I mean, what's your background? How did you learn to play music, to sing? What's your backgrounds?
So my father, actually, I have to admit, is pretty musically talented. And he, when I was very young, I think he did it out of his own hobby, but partially to, you know, get me into something too. He set up, you know, like a low-key studio up in our attic. And then he got a piano for downstairs. And every morning he would sit down at the piano and he would play all these different songs, like the Boomtown Rats. There's another song. Wow. I'm trying to band, but he would play things by some 80s bands. And then I actually just started sitting down the one day and just fiddling around on the piano, and I was able to replicate what I was hearing my father doing. So I have a little bit of an ear just naturally. And then when I got to be about 15, I joined my first jazz band. We had a couple paid gigs, which was nice. You know, and then that kind of dispersed. And then I went to play with like a 5 or 6 piece rock band. And then once I got to college, I minored in jazz studies just to get a little bit of a background on more so the traditional jazz.
Yeah.
So that's my background. with getting into music.
What about you, Christian?
Oh, go ahead. You got it.
Well,
It's wild.
When I started out, like I said, I have synesthesia, so I see colors when I hear. It's called chromesthesia. I see colors when I hear music, notes, chords, instruments, and stuff like that. So it was kind of like almost like I had to do this, So 1981, I started guitar lessons, and I had a really cheap guitar. It was terrible, man. This thing was a bad acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And I didn't stay with it because it was just horrible. The lessons were horrible. The guitar was horrible. I was breaking a string almost every time I sat down with it, and I just said, and I really wanted an electric guitar because that's the sound that I heard in my head. So I waited a couple of years, got an electric guitar. And I remember even the new guitar I bought from JCPenney, right? It was like $69 with the amplifier. I plugged everything in. It hardly worked just because I found out later the cable was defective that came with it, right? And I remember just like cranking it and hitting an E minor, and I was like, yeah, that's the sound I want. That's it right there. From then on, it was just hooked. So I just kind of, and that's it. And I got a keyboard and, wanted to learn how to play like Tony Banks from Genesis.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. I mean, if you're inspired by Tony Banks, you must really want to play keyboards,
That's how I actually learned how to play chords. Like I remember like playing one note and then playing two notes for like Behind the Lines. That was one of my favorite songs. And I go da da da. And I was like, okay, that sounds like Behind the Lines. Then I added another note, like I skipped another key and I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's the three notes. How did I do that? And I was like, then that I discovered chords. What would it be if I played four notes? And so I was like, okay, well, this is what he's doing. So this sounds great. I did something, so I'm going to follow this. So, and then I took lessons on the guitar all through sophomore through senior, and then I went to college for guitar. I got a scholarship, music scholarship to Marywood University.
Nice.
I've been doing all this ever since. So
wow, that's
still practicing. There's still stuff I can't do every day. I sit down with my guitar and I want to quit because there's things that I can't do.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, you're probably part of a pretty big club, I mean, there's just certain things that I mean, you look at the landscape, guys who, the late, great Eddie Van Halen and all these other great guitar players out there. My good buddy, Eric Clapton, who's a pretty good guitar player, So what are you guys doing now as far as you working on any? I know this. We got the Play Nice CD here. Anything new in the works? You guys working on any new material?
We have two songs in particular. One that we have in the works. We can't give too much detail on it yet, but it's going to.
If you like Steely Dan, you're going to love this track, man.
It's going to be good.
This record sounds like it could have been off of Gaucho. Yeah.
But we definitely have a few surprises in the works for sure. But then we also have a song that's going to come out, a smooth jazz, and this brings us back to taking that traditional sound, which I at least love in jazz,
like disco jazz funk,
putting in those smooth jazz, soft rock innuendos in the song. We are going to be releasing a rendition of My Funny Valentine.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And we're very excited for people to hear it. I think everyone's really going to dig it, especially if you like, smooth jazz, yacht rock, soft rock.
If you like Steely Dan, and like, oh gosh,
the Bee Gees,
like the John Davis Monster Orchestra, the disco group, like the big great disco group, you're gonna love it. Sounds like it's cool, man. It's like you would think that it was recorded back then, that because
I always loved that song. I always loved that song, but it's one of those really traditional jazz songs, and some people don't love that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those songs that it's just so great, and I'm like, I love it so much, and I want other people to enjoy it too. So let's, it was kind of like, let's record a version that we can enjoy, and our listeners can enjoy too.
because that's usually a sad kind of somber tune, you know.
Yeah.
So like you take it, it's still, and no matter how you play, it's still a sad song because the lyrics and that whole the descending melody, you know, the descending kind of yearningness of the melody and chord progression that it has. So it's always going to be sad. So, but at least like it's got this kind of facade of being like upbeat, but it's still sad, which really is like the recipe for a good track, you know.
Yeah,
it's a vibe. It's a vibe. That's all I'm gonna say.
It's good.
It's a vibe.
Well, and I'm sure it's a good vibe. You know, what I like about what you guys do is you tend to, you put like a new face or new spin on something. Like I was again talking about the Britney Spears tune. I've listened to that multiple times. I'm going, now I kind of actually like this song. You know, it's not that I hated the song originally or anything like that. It's just that the way you guys did it, like I said, it was just really classy. And I could see you guys going out to a really nice, you know, establishment and performing a song like that and having really a positive response from people who probably either don't know the original or do know the original, but like the way you changed it up. And, you know, Leah, I can tell that you know, your passion for the smooth element, the smooth jazz element is really strong. And it's good to hear because it's super classy music. And it to me, it takes talent, it takes ability to pull off music like that. And it's ear candy. You know, you put the headphones on and it's just so sweet to listen to. And people, I think, especially with the world today, you know, the way things are going, and I'm not going to get into any specifics here, but sometimes you need to decompress and you need to be able to just listen, to let the music kind of just take you somewhere gently. You know what I mean? So I love what you guys are doing. I love it.
Thank you,
Dave. You know what? Like, I can't, for me, like, I'm so grateful that you have us on your show. I mean, and other like the DJs play us all over the world and stuff. And like, I never expected this at all. Like, why we never expected it. And people, they take a liking to you and they show you this love. And it's just like, wow, like it's like altruism. It's just like amazing. And I'm like, I'm so grateful. Like, you know,
the radio stations, the venues, everybody.
It gives you a sense of like what you're doing is, you know, people like what you're doing is validation, you know, and it's like, it's really like hard. Like it's just like, you get a thrill every time you think about it. You just light up inside. It really helps, especially in this dark time, you know?
Yeah. Well, and again, music is definitely a way to heal to some degree for a lot of people, you know. I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I could, you know. We had a hurricane that like rolled through here, and I had no power for 2 days, and I had no internet, so I couldn't stream. I foolishly, I never went out and bought a battery powered radio, you know, and I used to like have them in my house as a kid. I would, that's how I discovered I had this little AM transistor radio that I used to listen to all this. Is a station from Boston, WRKO, which was the top 40 king of AM radio back in the 70s. And I that's where I first heard like Andrea True, More. That's the first place I heard Rhiannon by Fleetwood Mac. And so, you know, when I didn't have music to listen to during the hurricane, I mean, my wife saw me, I was like twitching. I'm like, what's the matter? I'm like, I can't even listen to music. This is just, you know, and for a lot of people, music is really a part of their daily life. And, you know, it's spiritual for some people. Obviously there's spiritual music in addition to, and sometimes you can have, I have these experiences with like listening to Hot Rod Hearts. You know, I think of where was I and what was I doing? And that song with just the beginning with that guitar lick. And it's just one of those songs. I mean, there are a lot of songs like that, but I listen to it and I'm humbled by it. It's weird. I'm just like, this is so good. And it's there still. And I can listen to it when I want to, and I can put a playlist together. And I'm thankful that you guys are out there trying to like keep that torch lit or relight it or bring it to a new place where other people, you know, get a blessing from it. And it's just, it's cool that I know you guys. And a lot of people will say to me, well, you know, these guys aren't like a big name. You're going to have them on your show. And I'm like, I love the underdogs. I love the guys who are in the trenches. I love the bands that are out there, you know, whether it's a blues bar, you know, on a Friday night, or it's you guys in a nice lounge, nice jazzy club doing the same thing on a Saturday night or Sunday brunch or something. That's where the music is. That's where it used to be, where you'd hone your chops, right? And then, you know, the record label would say, aha, I like this band. But now you're your own record label, and you upload the music, whether it's a, you know, Spotify or wherever else. It's a weird world in that way. It has some advantages, but you know, you're not going to make a lot of money, I guess, out there. Am I right?
Not off, you know, of course, not digitally, not off strings. But see, the upside of that is this, you know, like personally, like when I was doing like my solo stuff and when we're doing our stuff, we don't really think about, are people going to like this? We just do it because we want to do this. Like in my head, it's like, oh, it's a challenge. Like I'm going to record this as to sound like this era. And if people like it, that's great. You know, see, so
I don't think you could look at the money aspect of it, you know? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we go out, we play out. Yes, that is a form of income to some extent for us. But I think if you're going to really dive deep into music, looking at the money, you can't.
And today, you know,
it's a labor of love.
Yeah. Today, one of the this is a great thing. It's like there are no gatekeepers anymore. You know that. There's no giant labels. They don't have the power. So all these, and she was saying too, some of these artists get discovered on TikTok or, you know, some other platform that they don't, you know, nobody knows who they are, but they like them. They pick them up, and like there's a market for everything. I mean, like Ches Kane, and you know Ches Kane, she's making great
awesome.
80s, like, you know, rock. Fire Tiger, you know,
there's a new Ches Kane album. Got it on Friday. Yeah, she's been on the show. I love her. I mean, and her style too. I mean, you know, there are people out there, and I'm just like, it's like Cher or Vixen or Lita Ford, and she's such a nice, I'd say kid. I don't know how old she is, but she's just, it's great that it's back, you know, and it's there. And I love it. I mean, the album is superb. You listen to it from start to finish, and you know, there's a saxophone on a track, and you're like, if it sounds like "Take Me Home Tonight" or something like that, I'm just, you know, get the goosebumps.
Yeah, her last album, you know, her first album had a very, like, I was going to call it like a late '80s LA sound. Do you notice? Almost like Poison and Motley Crue-ish kind of sound. But this one has more of like a mid '80s kind of heart feel. You know, that album, the '80s with all the hits on it. Yeah.
And she's really great.
Yeah, and she seems like a really nice person too, which again, once you talk to somebody, you meet them and you hang out or whatever, and you go, you know what, I even like you even more now. I'm gonna talk about you even more. That's what I did with you guys. You know, Christian ends up being an all right guy, and then he's telling me about you and Leah, and I'm like, oh, both of you guys, it's like a package. It's like a duo. Like, you guys are the coolest duo since like Hall & Oates. You know what I mean? I think that's gonna be the title of the video. The coolest duo since Hall & Oates.
Seals and Crofts, right? We're talking about
Seals and Crofts. Yeah, I used to call them Arts and Crafts when I was on the radio, just to throw people off. And I mean, this Dan Seals and his brother just passed away, I believe, Jimmy. Right? Yeah, Jimmy. Just sad, because that music, dude, all of that stuff.
I think Loggins and Messina was the first duo, and then, you know, as it went in the whole industry, it was like when you had like something hot, every other label would jump right on that. So you had like Loggins and Messina on Columbia. Then it was like everybody, Warner Brothers had to have their duos. Here comes Seals and Crofts. You know what I mean? And it's like Hall & Oates on Atlantic the next year. It's like boom, 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 you know? So
England Dan, John Ford. I want to have John Ford Coley on at some point just to say, dude, why England Dan? I know the story, but it's just, when I was growing up listening to that, I'm like, this is so confusing. Then you had Seals and Crofts, and they were related, and it was just like, wow, I'm just going to listen to the music and not worry about who they are, you know. So
and gentlemen, that was another soundtrack of my life. I wrote a tune called Midnight Radio, and I was trying to go for like Seals and or England Van and John Ford Coley, man. Just that was the thing, and a lot of people, nobody else was doing that. I was like, this is like great stuff, And I know that Dave, you remember back in the '80s, right? As soon as the '80s rolled around, all this music we're talking about was like old hat. It was
gone.
You played this stuff. You were as square as a You know what I'm saying?
I mean, like, I remember Firefall ran into a brick wall. That band was trying, and they had hits, but when the '80s came along, it was like, no more Firefall. Sorry.
Look, young. That was the MTV influence, man. It was still the '70s, like I said, up until about 1982. You remember? I mean, look, it starts in late 1981. You still had like Christopher Cross, Elton John. Everybody.
That album by Bill LaBounty came out in '82, and it was pretty much ignored. And it's this, and everybody knows this who follows this. It's like the most classic yacht rock. I mean, everybody who is anybody played on it, and by that time, people were they've moved on. They were like Tommy Two-Tone and the Motels and all that. It was just, it was kind of weird, but I mean, all that music is great, but it's, and you saw that obviously in a much worse catastrophe, I think in the early '90s, when all the stuff with Melody just kind of walked out and left the building. And then you were left with, see, and this is why your music is great. Cause it's not dark. It's upbeat. Even if it's softer and not as melodic, it's listenable. You know what I mean? And that's why I think all of those styles to me are in country too. A lot of the country music that came out in the '90s, I think, was like a throwback to the '70s to some degree, with a little bit more twang maybe. But that's why a lot of people who used to listen to top 40, like I was the guy who, played top 40, was at a rock station. And then I was listening to like Joe Diffie and Travis Tritt. It was just, for me, it was just better music. It sounded better,
I was in a country band. We toured all up the East Coast, in the mid '90s for like 5 years, and it was like two different worlds, literally. Country people, and you had the grunge world. Like that was it, man. We're just like these two different things.
Hey, Christian, I could see you trying out for like the Lyle Lovett part in a movie or something.
I don't know if that's a compliment or insult.
Both. No, I'm just kidding. I love these guys. So, all right. So we got the website. We're going to wrap it up just because, ADD and all that good stuff. And now that I've got a title for the video, we're going to get like 1 million views and you guys will be famous. And then, you can write me checks at that point. You just write it out to Dave, we can only hope, right? So you got the website. You guys are on Facebook as the Frost Duo. Is that right?
We're on everywhere. You will find us everywhere if you just type in the Frost Duo.
Got it.
You'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, TikTok. We're getting into TikTok a little more.
We're like McDonald's. We're everywhere.
Yep.
What now, if somebody wanted to order, like a crazy person like me wanted like a hard copy of this, you guys sell them?
Yes. You can purchase them directly from us. We are, pretty laid back. You can message us on Facebook. We'll send you one. You could, make a payment through us, or could go on Amazon and you could purchase it right off of Amazon. They have been selling fast. I know they're, they're going for like the restock and everything. So hopefully, they're restocked again soon.
I've been shipping them out every week.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
You could order them right off of Amazon, which I think is the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
or CD Baby itself,
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people, like we talked about before, and I asked, I'm a music teacher also. It's one of my jobs, and a lot of my students, they, well, how do you listen to your music? I asked them, Pandora, Spotify. They don't even bother downloading the thing anymore, or buying it from iTunes. It's
but
just
sometimes they do. Like
sometimes,
our EP, it did so well with physical albums, and we actually charted on iTunes, Apple Music.
Nice.
We landed next to Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga. I almost died.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's incredible nowadays how your album could be everywhere, and there's so many platforms. And sometimes it does very well in one aspect and on one platform, and then other platforms maybe not so much. I mean, like, I could tell you where our highest purchases and streams come from, and I'll tell you, this EP, it's not on Spotify, it's actually through iTunes, Apple. Whereas our very first album, the streams we got on Spotify were huge, but obviously our first album didn't chart at all. Apple Music. So it's just incredible, where your music could go nowadays.
Well, I guess that's the upside, right, to the whole streaming thing. Once you get your stuff out there and people get instant access, like if they wanted, say, to go and listen to this after they watch this very entertaining video that we're doing, they could go and say, okay, I want to check out the Frost Duo. I mean, if Dave says it's good, right, but it's not me, it is good. It is, I can say stuff and people just go, okay, whatever. I'm going to go back and listen to Sade. Why do I need to hear the Frost Duo? I'm going to say because it's new and it keeps the genre alive. And you got to support Christian and Leah Beth. You got to go out there and support the artist. So I appreciate you guys coming on with me so much. This has been great. I knew it would be great. And you guys are out there performing live. When's your next gig? You can plug your next gig.
Okay, so our next gig coming up, the 28th, we're going to do a little country rock night at Hammered Steel Tavern. But then on the 29th, we are at the beautiful Hotel Hershey in Hershey, Pennsylvania, 8 to 11 in the Iberian Lounge. You want to talk about a fantastic, beautiful, elegant looking jazz club? That is it.
Wow.
In courtesy of Christopher Entertainment Group for putting us there. And on the 30th, we're doing a jazz brunch, which we were talking about. You could see us doing jazz brunches, and we have one coming up on the 30th at the Hilton in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So if you guys are in that area, come on out. We'd love to meet you. Come up, say hi. Don't be shy. And we'd love to talk to everybody.
One more thing, I have a Christmas single coming up. It's not a single. It's going to be an album for Demand Impact, which is it's a foundation that helps fight drug addiction and helps take care of people who are the victims of drug addiction and their families. And it's going to be a Christmas album with Dave, with Page 99 is on it.
Okay. Hold on. Shameless plug here. The latest. And by the way, I think this album is what got me hooked up with you guys. If you remember John Nixon and, and he said, hey, you gotta check out Christian Gratz. I'm like, who? And so that's how,
I was a song with them.
Yeah.
So.
I recorded a song last year with them. And so we're doing this big collective. Awesome. They did an album last year, and it had all the yacht rock cats on it, man. Bill Champlin was on it, Vernon Porter, and TJ George is like the head. He's running this, and this album this year is going to have the Orleans. It's going to have Patti LaBelle. No, not Patti LaBelle.
Patti Austin.
Patti Austin. Who else did I miss? I always freeze when I get nervous.
It's all right. No pressure.
Al Jarreau on it. August Red, myself, and who else?
There's a whole list.
I'm like super proud to be, and so they're basically Christmas. They're Christmas songs. I wrote mine's an original. I wrote an original, kind of like in the late '70s pop, late '70s yacht pop style. I think you'll dig it. It's called December. That's the name of the song. It's about a girl. Her name is December, and the scene takes place in December of the song. So it's that's going to be coming out soon. So we're going to be hyping that like crazy.
Lots of cool stuff
That's
coming
the cool
up.
stuff coming out.
Well, you guys have to keep me posted, right?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks,
we
Dave.
really had a great time talking with you.
You are the best. We love you.
Well, maybe, maybe not. We'll see after this video what happens. No, I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. This is going to be great. All right. The Frost Duo, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for being on, and check out their music, check out their website, check out their Facebook, check out everything. They're also a very attractive, good looking duo. So yeah, best duo since Hall & Oates, and probably a little better looking overall.